A round stone slab with some kind of occult symbol. This slab's separate from the rest of the floor. I can see the seam running along the edges. That said, I can't lift it with my bare hands. Let's see if the crank handle still works. Let's attack this thing. There, I've drilled a small hole. I'll take it down again. I'll unscrew the hook. The North Tower Crypt. This is where all the Tula Society's research objects are supposed to be held. I've got to get down there. I've screwed the hook into the drill hole. It's lodged pretty tight. Fenton, you old dog, you've done it again. The chandelier's attached to the hook, which is screwed into the slab in the floor. When I turn the crank, the whole thing comes away. Shame there's nobody here to congratulate me. Ah, there's a cable here. Maybe I can climb down on it. Hopefully it'll take my weight. Looks like I'm in the right place, finally. Not that I'm complaining. There's a sort of dossier on this podium. I'll just skim it quickly. It outlines the Tula Society's central objectives. According to this, the Society was founded in the early 1920s with the aim of restoring the knowledge of lost civilizations for its own use. The Tula Society's influence extends into the highest echelons of the German Reich. This gives them complete carte blanche on their activities. They can do whatever the hell they like. Seems they launched a project codenamed Vril under the direction of our old friend, Countess von Hagenhild. The focus of this project is the search for Shambhala. The Tula Society believes that a vast store of ancient knowledge is being hoarded there. The source of morphogenetic fields. Morphogenetic fields? Never heard of them. But then it does ring true with what Professor Hayes was talking about, a store of ancient knowledge. If I remember the professor's description correctly, the hunters and herders of Shambhala suddenly developed into a flourishing and highly advanced society. Hayes reckons some sort of mysterious energy was responsible for the tribe's development. Is that what they mean by morphogenetic fields? These documents contain the research results of a scientist by the name of Aldrich von Hagenhild. Must be some relative of the Countess. Von Hagenhild spent his time searching for the world soul. Christ, can't these people just use sensible names? The basis for von Hagenhild's research was the concept that for an organism to develop as it should, there must be some immaterial power steering it in the right direction. Basically, an invisible blueprint determining form and growth. So, why does a rabbit develop the way it does? And why does a pine tree become a pine tree? Who's the architect? What tells them to grow bark? Or fancy lady rabbits? Looks like these questions led von Hagenhild to believe there was some invisible, imperceptible field that controls the development of an organism. He called it morphogenetics. Von Hagenhild explains the holistic aspect of self-organizing systems with his theory of morphogenetic fields. Basically, the field stores forms or behavioral patterns that every member of a species draws from and adds to. This was his Western take on something the East had known for some time. In Far Eastern philosophy, people refer to his morphogenetic fields as the divine essence of nature, or as the soul. He thought he'd identified the soul. He didn't think the soul was a spiritual thing. He thought it was a fundamental principle of nature that had been warped and confused by religions the world over. He even thought he had proof. He refers to certain experiments he carried out. Ugh, this is a lot of information to take in. Von Hagenhild really believed that in these morphogenetic fields, he'd identified the soul, the central power behind all living things. These documents refer to several experiments which are supposed to prove the existence of morphogenetic fields. Von Hagenhild wanted to prove that every species obtains its entire being, its form, its instincts, from these fields, like some kind of collective memory. These inherited memories control not just the form, but also the behavior, the capabilities, and the knowledge of the relevant species. He called it a group soul. Experiment number 1, the rat experiment. The experiment investigated the capability of rats to find their way through a maze. At the beginning of the experiment, the rats needed 165 attempts before they could get through the maze without a mistake. But a few rat generations later, the number of attempts had dropped to 20. Conclusion: the first batch of rats learned how to navigate the maze, and this instinct was somehow added to the rats' group soul. When later rats navigated the maze, they somehow had access to this ancestral memory, even if the rats weren't directly related. Experiment number 2. The ape experiment. 2 ape colonies of the same species were isolated and observed on 2 small islands in the Indian Ocean. Von Hagenhild's team taught the apes on one island a few new behavioral patterns. The other colony was left undisturbed and uninfluenced, so while the apes on the first island are learning how to open tins and the like, the others are eating bananas. Several months later, the apes on the undisturbed island began displaying these new skills, even though they'd never come into contact with the other colony. Von Hagenhild's conclusion: all members of a species are connected by morphogenetic fields. They share a subconscious collective memory. He thought this theory could explain a lot. Animals' sense for impending danger, telepathy, sixth sense in humans. Von Hagenhild also concludes that members of a group can learn something new at a far quicker pace when the vast majority of members of that same group have already acquired the knowledge. These fields are basically stores of information that are effective across space, and in rare cases even time. Von Hagenhild presumes this would go some way towards explaining premonitions, human beings sporadically accessing morphogenetic fields from varying points in the future. It all sounds very far-fetched. But then it does explain a lot. Supposing morphogenetic fields really exist, they'd be the answer to problems science has been trying to solve for centuries. And if all these fields add up, if there's some kind of central repository of all this information, Christ, it'd basically be the scientific definition of God. I'm beginning to understand why the Tula Society's quite so interested. And if there's even the slightest chance it's all true, why they need to be stopped. Is this the Piri Reis map? It's hand-drawn, ancient. There are some notes next to it. Finally, von Hagenhild became convinced that there must be a type of definitive field from which all other fields are derived. All manifestations have an origin. He tried to back this up with historical evidence. A world soul, for instance, had been proposed by Plato over 2,000 years ago. But what really convinced him was the discovery of an old, mysterious map of the world, drawn by the Ottoman general Piri Reis. I knew it! It's the map! Let's see. Further on in the text, von Hagenhild discovered that the general had drawn up the map in the 16th century, using sources which were thousands of years old. But how could they have known at that time what the world looked like? He posed the theory that a civilization had existed then, which possessed extraordinary knowledge and skill. He discovered a marking on the map, which was written in an unfamiliar language. Research in Far Eastern libraries revealed it was a long-forgotten Tibetan script. Once translated, it claimed the marking indicated the source of all knowledge, the center of the morphogenetic fields. It was a hidden valley in the Himalayas, Shambhala. Shortly before he died in 1934, von Hagenhild passed the responsibility of continuing the research onto his daughter. Professor Hayes was right. About everything. The Tula Society arrived at the exact same conclusion as he did. They were just one step ahead. Lucky I'm one step more. Richard used the first key to pass through the gate in that secret room in the monastery. I just need to find the second. The Nazis can't enter Shambhala without it. And, as it happens, I have the eye. And I have the map. I just need to use them to find the location of the second key. My last hope of finding Richard is based on an ancient legend. Great. It's time to cross everything I've got. And I mean everything. Fingers crossed. I've come all this way, but I'm still a little surprised it actually worked. The Piri Reis map really is the map of the Guardians of Shambhala. Or at least it was drawn to their specifications. So Professor Hayes was also right in thinking the priests of Shambhala took the second key artifact to India and hid it in a temple there. And now I know exactly where to look. On the Kathiawar Peninsula, just north of Bombay. Thinking about it, I actually know the commander of the British regiment in Rajkot. If the old drunkard hasn't been transferred for disciplinary reasons again, I'm sure he'll lend me a hand. Or at least a decent bottle. Then, I'll just have to find the temple and get hold of the key artifact. What could be simpler?
Looks like the road ends here. This village is supposed to be the last settlement. Other than that, there's nothing but thick jungle in every direction. The commander of the local troops led me this far. But now I need to quiz a local about the temple. I have no idea where it is. Hello? Hello?
Jesus, where is everyone?
Looks like this place was abandoned pretty recently. Hello? Is anybody there?
The Nazis can't have been here already. Can they? Damn it. I'll have to find the temple on my own. Not much going on. I'll take that cloth with me too. It's dried up in the heat. A man can never have enough feathers. What is that? It's a small goat. It appears to be hiding underneath the hut. Well, no, it's definitely hiding underneath the hut. I can see it from here. All this military training, and now I realize I never learned how to coax a goat out of hiding.
Bah! Bah!
Damn, it's gone further underneath the hut. I'll just take a short wander into the jungle. Maybe the villagers are out foraging or whatever it is villagers do.
Hey, you there! Where do you think you are going?
Christ! You frightened the life out of me! What the hell are you doing hiding in there?
Get away from the edge of the jungle. Come here!
What's wrong?
Don't ask, just do what I say.
Have I done something wrong? Sorry, I didn't mean to sneak around. I just wasn't sure where everyone had got to.
There's a man-eater about.
A what?
Doesn't anything strike you as strange around here?
Well, yes.
He came into the village last night while we were sleeping.
Who?
The man-eater. Listen to me. The beast is still out there. I can feel it in my bones.
And you're the only survivor?
No, during these months, only women, children, and old people live in the village. The young men work on the tea plantations. When he came, there was no one here to protect us. Those who could walk packed their things and left this morning.
What sort of animal are we talking about here? I'm, something of an expert.
A tiger, what else?
A tiger?
It was no normal tiger, it was a man-eater. Tigers normally avoid settlements. They hunt in the jungle. But now and again, a few of the particularly hungry ones stray into the villages. I remember the old stories from my childhood. When a man-eater has picked out a village, he stalks it for days until he can strike again.
When you put it like that, it does sound kind of scary. But I have a very important task, and I'm looking for someone who can help me.
What brings you here, stranger?
I'm looking for an old monastery, or a temple. Do you know anywhere around here that fits the description?
Well, as a matter of fact, there is an old temple nearby.
Great. How do I get there? Could you show me?
You may have no instinct for survival, stranger, but I wish to retain what is left of my life. I cannot leave the village until the man-eater is dealt with.
Okay, tell you what. I'll have a look around and think of something. If I deal with the tiger, will you lead me to the temple?
Take my word for it, stranger.
Great. It's a deal.
Be careful out there.
There's thick jungle in every direction, save for a small trail leading southwest. I'll follow the path leading out of the village so I don't get lost. Let's see where it leads to. What is that sound? Christ, there really is a tiger out there. I never knew they sounded like that. Thinking about it, I'm not a vet, but this guy might be injured. No doubt he'd still eat me given half a chance. I should stay out of his way. Ugh. Leeches, dysentery, mud. Not very enticing. I don't know anything about mushrooms, but that's no reason not to pick them. If they taste foul, I can just throw them away. Ugh, leeches. That's the man-eating tiger I'm supposed to be dealing with. It sounds like it's in pain. It's pretty thick. I can't just pull it down. I've seen a worryingly large number of plane wrecks in the last week. At least this one wasn't my fault. As far as I know.
Before I make a stew out of them, I should probably ask an expert if they're even edible. Hello?
Yes? Any luck in hunting the tiger?
Yes, I saw the tiger. You're right. He's still lurking about.
Told you so.
I think I know why it came into the village last night as well. He looks injured. He's out in the swamp making sad noises. Would that explain why he's acting so aggressively?
Quite possibly. But regardless, I am staying in my hut. And don't go getting any wild ideas yourself.
But I promised to help.
As you please. Is there anything else?
I found these mushrooms in the jungle. Are they edible?
I would only eat them if you have sleeping problems. These mushrooms contain a natural sedative. We use them to treat minor injuries. But I have heard of a Brahmin who performs operations on injured animals and sedates them with the poison from these mushrooms during the operations.
Interesting. So you just chuck them down the creature's throat?
No, the sedative must get into the bloodstream. The mushrooms are cooked and the juice that escapes is then injected. It requires a bit of experience to get the dosage right. Too much of the stuff could knock out a huge water buffalo, never mind a small pet.
No problem. Caution is my middle name. Is there any chance I can convince you to come out for just 10 minutes? The tiger's out in the swamps. I don't think he really poses a threat.
I forgot I was the tourist and you were the local. Believe me, it poses a threat.
All right, all right. I'm on it. I'll see what I can do.
Good luck.
He looks hungry. Goats eat green things, don't they? Okay, little guy. Fancy an adventure?